Hi, this is Mrs. Duffy, and today we're going to talk about how to construct a data table. We're going to use this article about Tom Brady and the Deflategate scandal. So first I'm going to read the information because I need to figure out what I'm going to put into my data table. So first it says Tom Brady of the New England Patriots wanted to find out if deflating the footballs would allow him to throw further. He decided to collect data from 2 consecutive games so as not to be too obvious. The official pounds of the pressure per square inch (PSI) in the NFL game ball ranges from 12.5 to 13.0 PSI. So during a game against the Seattle Seahawks, he inflated his first football to 13.5 pounds per square inch. In the first quarter, his average passing distance was 22 yards. The second quarter, he deflated his football to 13.1 PSI, and his average passing distance was 25 yards. In the third quarter, he deflated the football to 12.7 PSI, and his average passing distance was 28 yards. And in the fourth quarter, he further deflated the football to 12.3 PSI, and his average passing distance was 35 yards. In the next game against the Chicago Bears, he initially inflated the football to 13.5 PSI. In the first quarter, his average passing distance was 26 yards. In the second quarter, he deflated the football to 13.1 PSI, and his average passing distance was 29 yards. In the third quarter, he further deflated the football to 12.7 PSI, and his average passing distance was 35 yards. Finally, in the fourth quarter, he deflated the football to 12.3 PSI, and his average passing distance was 52 yards. Now, if you're like me, you're looking at this information thinking, there's a lot there and I don't even know where to start. So the first thing that you need to do is just to figure out what you're measuring, which is your independent variable and which is your dependent variable. Well, the independent variable is the one that we are changing. So I'm going to write in that the independent variable is the PSI, or the football pressure, and that is measured in PSI. The dependent variable, or what we're looking for, is actually the how far it's being passed. So I'm going to say passing distance, and that is measured in yards. Okay, it's really important that we have units here, because if we don't, then you won't know exactly what to graph. So now I'm going to grab a ruler, a pencil, and a piece of graph paper and start my data table. The first thing that I need for my data table is I need to figure out what the title is. I'm going to pull out this handy dandy checklist for data table. And I need the title in my format. So that's a dependent variable versus the independent variable. Well, if I think back, the dependent variable was the passing distance. So I'm going to write passing distance. Versus independent variable, which was the yardage or the football pressure. All right, so my first thing is done. Now it tells me my independent variable is in the left column. So I'm going to write football pressure over here on the left. And, I'm glad I checked my list. I also need to put in the unit. So that is PSI. The next one is, so I got that. My dependent variable is in the right-hand column. Well, really what the dependent variable is the passing distance. And that is measured in yards. Oops. One thing that was kind of tricky about this example is that it gave us yardage for the Chicago Bears game and for the Seahawks game. So I'm going to have to kind of split this into two, and I'm going to write Seahawks, because I know I'm going to have to list them, and Bears. So now I have a format. Dependent is in the right, yardage. Now I'm going to take out my ruler and I'm going to make my grid. So it's important that I use a ruler so that I make nice straight lines. And I'm not quite sure how far I'm going to go down. So I'm going to check my data again and see what it said. So let's see. I have the first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter. So for each of those games, I have 4 measurements. All right, so let's flip back. So I need to make space for at least 4 measurements. Now you notice that I'm kind of counting so that my bars are equal. So I'm going down 3, 1, 2, 3, and then making my line. Okay, and then since it was 2 different games, I'm going to do this also. Okay, so looking back, now I can fill in my data. And you know what? This is going to be a blank square, and that's okay. So if I look back at the PSI, they gave me 4 different PSIs. The first one was 13.5. The second one was 13.1, 12.7, and 12.3. And let's see, for the yardage that they got, our Seattle Seahawks was 22, then 25, then 28, then 35. For the Bears, it was 26, 29, 35, and 52. So if we just kind of look real quick to evaluate these numbers a little bit, I'll notice that as the PSI went down, the yardage increased. Very interesting, very interesting. So let's take a look back at our data table checklist and make sure we have all the pieces. Did I use a ruler? Yes, I did. Did I use pencil? Yes, I did. Did I include all of the data? Yes, I did. That's it. Voila. Our data table is done, and now it will be a lot easier to create our graph.